Man, and we're back again, twice in 1 week. Unprecedented. Nobody saw it coming. Who could have planned this? Only us. Welcome again back to Black Friday, y'all. My name's Christian. We got Chris. We got Omar. Special guest tonight. We got Austin Erickson, the one and only himself. Man, Austin, thanks for hopping on, man.
For sure, my dude. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course, man. It's always a pleasure. Man, Austin, why don't you give a little background for the people here that might not know your work too?
So my name is Austin Erickson, and I'm actually based out of the Bay Area, California. So it doesn't get much more liberal than that. I've been working with Turning Point USA and our national field program out there for the past 2 years on, college and high school campuses, and now just jumped over into Turning Point's new department, Turning Point Faith. And so, as we're rolling this out, getting excited about, this whole new department and really seeing the faith community getting engaged. And so that's a little bit about me. So, I started off as a conservative and now I'm a libertarian, and I know Christian's all about that. And so I'm sure we'll get into that later, but yeah, that's a little bit of who I am.
Freedom over everything,
Over everything.
Can we
any cost, no matter what, just freedom. Man. Freedom's the answer, no matter what it is.
Are we gonna get a double libertarian grant going today? Is that
this could be interesting? I might have to make a special banner for that one, like super duper libertarian rant.
Libertarian 1, libertarian 2.
Oh, man,
Hey, we're popping up all over. We'll be taking over soon.
I believe that's a topic tonight.
That's something else. But
yeah,
man, before we get into this and everything, I had some interesting discussions with my team earlier today, and we got back to the topic with policing and the police. Now, Austin, I'm not sure exactly. I don't know if we've ever necessarily talked about policing or the police force and everything, but where do you stand with policing and police? Like, where do you stand with the whole maybe defund movement and everything else? Like, how do you stand with that?
Yeah. So, kind of my journey is, as a conservative, I was a back the blue, all the way. And, and very much so during this last summer with all the BLM riots, like I felt like the BLM movement wasn't being fair in a lot of these situations to cops. And so definitely was a big back the blue guy. But then, at that same time, that was kind of where I started becoming more libertarian, because I was looking into, more with all the riots and stuff. I started getting into guns a little bit more. I'm like, all right, I gotta, take self-defense a lot more seriously. And then as I started learning about more of the gun laws, especially in California, some of the worst gun laws in the country, then you start realizing, like, crap, big government really sucks, especially when it starts affecting your life. And there's guns you can't have. There's like ridiculous rules, can't hardly get a concealed carry out there in California. So as I started getting more guns, and then started to realize, like, these same police that conservatives were backing, and we had their back, not all of them, of course, but a lot of these same police officers will turn around and enforce unconstitutional gun laws. So I was like, man, I'm not really about this. And so I would say I've moved from being a back the blue supporter to pretty neutral in a situation by situation basis. So I'm not about defund the police completely either, because as a libertarian, I think government has a very small role in our lives. Military, court system, and the few instances where government should be involved in our lives is when someone's rights have been infringed on. And so I think there's a constitutional case to have a police force. But when it comes to supporting them, especially when it comes to, and then obviously with COVID, they enforced a lot of shutdown laws and whatnot.
Absolutely.
So I would say I'm kind of just like neutral when it comes to police. I wouldn't say I support. I wouldn't say I'm for completely defunding either.
Okay, so here's the thing. In the libertarian community, especially with a lot of these other libertarian nonprofits, the topic of qualified immunity comes up. Mm-hmm. And they're generally the stance from libertarians, and from mostly everybody I talk to, especially within the party, and just people in general, is they want to end qualified immunity for police officers. What do you think about ending qualified immunity for police? Do you think that's the move, or do you think we need to keep it?
I'll let Chris, the other libertarian, jump in on this one first.
So, see, I think that's where it is. like Austin said, kind of case by case basis is how I see the like Back the Blue movement and things like that. A lot of these videos that come out where they call police brutality, and you really have to wait and look at the facts. So with qualified immunity, I feel like they do push a lot from both sides, and they make a good argument. I think the Back the Blue movement, they try to push it to where cops can do more and more without being affected or having the risk, because they make the argument, well, a cop won't do their job if they're afraid to go to prison, or something along those lines. And then you have the other argument from the defund side, where they're saying that, well, they should be punished even more than a regular citizen if they commit a crime or if they mess up on the job. And so personally, I do think that we should probably bring qualified immunity back. I don't think that it should be as extensive. But then again, that is a slippery slope. Either way you move it. If you move and you go too much or you go a little bit more, you're going to lose the police force. And I am a libertarian, but I'm also from Detroit. You need cops. If you don't have cops, I see what that's like, and I know what it is like. And so,
did you happen to see Tatum's video this week?
I didn't.
Well, he put a video up in Detroit. 2 female police officers witnessed a shooting right in front of their faces, and they drove in the opposite direction and left.
That sounds like
they
Detroit.
did not respond. They left. Like later.
See, that's the thing, though. You have police forces that are not compensated well enough, but then you also have police forces that, and Detroit is one. We were a bankrupted city, less than 10 years ago. And we're coming back. We're on the comeback. We're going to say that forever. Don't trust me there. But we're on the comeback. And eventually, I'm sure we'll have a police force that will be respectable. But with qualified immunity, I think it's more important that you have citizens that are not afraid of their rights being infringed upon, or a police force that are emboldened by these laws, rather than have maybe that fear of lack of police. I'd rather have it to where I'm not afraid of my rights being infringed upon because this cop is going to get off, rather than, afraid of not having cops because he's afraid he'll go to prison. That's my take on it.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. And I would say, at a certain point I would have said, yeah, let's get rid of qualified immunity. And then it was a police officer I was actually talking to, and he was saying that when you take away qualified immunity, you're not just taking away legal protections for police officers, but you're also opening up the city to those same lawsuits. And so what ends up happening is you have these cities that basically their entire budget starts getting put towards legal fees and trying to deal with that. And so that's not necessarily what you want either. And so because I think the difference between me and some other libertarians is I don't necessarily buy into the whole cops are racist kind of thing. I'm all for accountability when it comes to body cams and whatnot, not based on a race thing, but just because, governmental power corrupts. And so, and really, I think a better focus would be to try to get rid of a lot of these unconstitutional laws. A lot of people look at the George Floyd situation and talk about how, qualified immunity and racist cops. Well, if we had legalized all drugs, then George Floyd wouldn't have felt necessary to take the rest of the drugs that he had when the cops showed up, and then he had that whole situation that unfolded later. So I think cops should be focusing on crimes where there is an actual victim, and not these unconstitutional laws that are infringing on people's liberties.
You're gonna have to go to legislation first before that in order to get that changed, so that they
for sure.
I don't want them to, it's absolutely going to be the case. Yeah. And then also another thing within libertarians, a lot of them believe that the police force is militarized. Do you believe that to be true? That we have our police force militarized?
I don't have it necessarily a big issue with that, as long as citizens can own the exact same things that police officers can. I have no problem with it, because at the end of the day, those police officers are also citizens. So we should all have access to as much of the military style weapons that we want.
Man, I'd love to get my hand on some NFAs, but it's
exactly.
It'd be a nice thing to have.
SBRs, yeah.
Yeah, some classified weapons of the sort. But yeah, man. Okay, that's good to know, man. it's case by case basis every time for me, and that's where more times than not too. Generally, the police happen to be right. It's just when they're like dead wrong, or it's like in the middle, like you just don't know yet. It's where the media blows it up, and then you're like having to make a decision. Because the clear-cut cases don't really make the news. Or if they do, it's for a split second, then it's gone because they realize it doesn't fit the narrative, and then it's kind of over. Yeah, but yeah. I just like kind of analyzing and stepping back for a bit before I kind of come to my actualization of what I see.
Christian, when you say you take it by case by case basis, what are you talking specifically about? The demilitarizing the police, or what are you just talking about?
As far as defund, not like defunding, but like as far as instances of brutality, whatever might happen, some stupid traffic stop where the cop like pits a car and makes it flip and like straight up like crashes into a barrier, like that happened, like stuff like that. Like I'm like take case by case. I look at the incident, I'm like, that's pretty bad. That probably shouldn't have happened. Or it's like he was pretty much in the right here. Like I don't see anything wrong with this at all. But I just like to analyze case by case basis when we're going through and just looking at things. As far as militarization goes, I mean, sometimes they come in there with the heavy SWAT cars, and then big time armored cars and trucks and everything, and people are like, look at that, look at that, look at that. I'm like, man, there's some heavy duty cases sometimes that call for that to happen. I can't deny that. There's some bad stuff happening out there at times, real bad stuff, and I can't make my solid ruling. And then unqualified immunity, I'm still not 100% sure yet myself. I'm not 100% sure if we should repeal it or keep it or not. I don't know. I don't like the idea of people being held above, above citizens, in a higher regard. I also don't like the idea of hanging something over somebody's head where they're too scared to do their job. I feel torn on it. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
To bring something up on the whole cops being militarized and things like that, I think it's very fair to say they are. I mean, the fact that they are given, a surplus from the military, Department of Defense, et cetera, all of that is militarization, the definition of. Now, is that necessarily a terrible thing? No, because when people are infringing upon our rights, we want the police to step in and take care of that. If somebody's doing it with, automatic weapons or doing terrible things and they need it, yeah, of course, I'm all for that. But the second the police try and come and infringe upon my rights, and they have that, thank you, Oscar, appreciate that. But the second they come and they try to come and infringe upon my rights with those weaponry, I better be able to have the exact same thing, like you guys said, because my cold dead hands, that's what they're gonna have to pry it from. I'm just saying. But that I just wanted to say that because it's two sides of the same coin, really. I want it's just the same thing as saying like I want the government to protect my rights, but when they use those same tools to come and take them from me, it's gonna be a fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my state of California, there's a discrepancy where citizens, we can't have anything over a 10-round mag. But police officers can have whatever they want. We can only have certain handguns that are on the handgun roster in California. Police can have whatever they want, and so that's where I think what you're touching on, the discrepancy is where there's an issue.
Exactly, especially when it's such a wide discrepancy as well. I mean, that is not the same thing. I guarantee you in California, they have them police departments have a lot of weaponry. They have a lot of tools, especially the bigger cities as well. I mean, and the fact that the citizens are not legally allowed to have that, why do they need it? Well, it's because those laws don't work. Those laws saying that only a 10-round mag, I guarantee you there's a lot of people in California who have more than 10-round mags. I'm just saying. So, I mean, it's almost like these gun control laws don't work.
Exactly. Like you can literally drive across the border into Nevada and buy whatever you want, grab your 30-round mags. So it's not stopping anyone except just making it inconvenience and making criminals out of legally owning gun owners.
Exactly.
Gun owners, man. It's crazy. Where do you stand on the NRA too? While we're at the topic there.
Oh, NRA.
I'm not the biggest fan anymore, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not the biggest fan of those guys. They kind of seem to be on a money scheme, and they're kind of just set in their ways, and they don't really want to fight for the Second Amendment anymore. It's kind of lame. Used to stick up for the little man. Now it doesn't seem to be that way anymore. Kind of seems like It's time for somebody else to go take the charge because Wayne LaPierre and co don't have it anymore. And,
Yeah, no, totally agree. And it's really unfortunate because the NRA still, at the end of the day, does spend the most money on gun lobbying, and I think you can't take away what the NRA has done over history in regards to protecting our Second Amendment. I think if you take away the NRA, we don't have that. But right now, what everyone points to, they didn't fight for bump stocks. They've let small liberties go. And, I think the 2A movement, I think, is probably the most hardcore it's ever been in a long time in regards to, drawing a line in the sand and saying no more, and so the NRA, I think they'll catch up eventually, but they're a little swampy, a little
they're
bit.
Old.
I think
they're old and out of
yeah.
touch.
Yeah, no,
really
definitely.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Okay, can we not? Are we gonna do this right now? We're really gonna? No. You get it.
Serious. We got a podcast that's rolling right now. Okay, guys, let's keep it serious.
He's saying keep it serious. So.
Wow.
I just.
Anyways, but yeah, so I think there's a lot of other organizations that are stepping into that gap that the NRA has left. Firearm Policy Coalition, especially, they're doing more for gun lawsuits than most organizations, and I think they're leading, at least on the lawsuit front. And then I think Gun Owners of America are probably that next best thing when it comes to actually gun lobbying. So I think those two organizations, for people who believe that gun rights are an actual right and no aspect of that should be infringed on, Gun Owners America and Firearm Policy Coalition are those kind of new up and coming gun lobbying organizations.
All righty. No, I'm looking more into gun policy. I think I want to get a membership soon here. As soon as I get my stuff in order. I think it'll
Yeah,
be
dude. No, do it.
Oh, looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to it. Now,
And Ron Paul endorsed Gun Owners America. So when the king speaks, you gotta listen.
The king of Fruit Loops, love that guy.
Y'all still wait, Austin? Y'all still listen to Ron Paul? I thought it was all about Rand now.
Oh, we libertarians usually. Well, it depends on the libertarian you talk to, but Ron Paul is still king. He's definitely still king. So
Always will be. Rand, I like Rand. Rand has some moments. He goes a little too far for me.
That's the son.
So, he is the son, but doesn't mean he's the Messiah. I mean, he's just the son. Ron Paul, I love Ron Paul, and he just always has those zingers. I wish Rand had those zingers sometimes. He doesn't. He's good at arguing. In the Capitol, though, I'll give him that. I like watching those videos. So good for Rand over there.
for sure.
Right. All right, let's get into it.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Let's get into
Oh,
it.
crap.
Tommy Lahren, man. I mean, it's a big topic of discussion. A lot of people aren't necessarily happy with her involvement in the movement currently. There's some people that love her and absolutely stand no matter what she does, or Tommy Lahren stands. They say, hey, she can do no wrong. She's awesome. We love her. She's spoken at plenty of events, for us and other organizations, apparently, across the board. But many people say that, she's not conservative. And I hold that belief to be true myself. I don't believe her to be no. I believe her just to be libertarian, and that's cool. But I don't like necessarily she calls herself conservative, because I don't see it at all. I don't really see it. I mean, what do you guys think? Go ahead.
I mean, I'll start, because I probably am the one who has the least amount of an opinion on Tommy Lahren. No offense to her, I really just am not a fan, and I don't hate her either. It's
so
literally,
careful.
it's very impartial, and I'm glad that she's doing stuff for the right, and I would say the conservative movement. But the only thing I don't like about her is that I personally try not to call myself a conservative, because I'm not really a conservative. I'm more a libertarian, and I feel like you really need to market yourself better or correctly. And it's hypocritical if you call yourself conservative and then go off on some stance I think Caitlyn Jenner for governor is not a conservative stance. And I'm not saying you can't support Caitlyn Jenner for governor. I have no horse in that race. I'm over here, with my terrible governor. So I'm, not gonna say to support him or her or not or whatever. But with Tomi Lahren, I feel like if you're gonna call yourself a conservative, you got to stick to those principles a little bit more. That's kind of my take on her.
Yeah, personally, when it comes to Tomi Lahren, I have no problem with her calling herself a conservative. I think that it's good, especially in a conservative movement, to have discussions and different opinions. And she just happens to fall on what I would disagree with her on the pro-choice issue. As a libertarian, I think you have to protect the individual's rights, and that includes the unborn.
What's the libertarian stance on abortion, though? There is a libertarian stance on abortion, though, and it's not pro-life. It's a libertarian stance. Like, how do you reconcile with that? I do want to know. Just to hop off, I do want to speak your brain on that.
Well, I want to know too.
Well, when it comes to libertarians, like Ron Paul, the most famous libertarian, was pro-life, and and one of the most prominent libertarians right now, who's up and coming, Dave Smith, he's also pro-life. And there's libertarians, and really within the libertarian movement, you're not a true libertarian unless someone tells you you're not a real libertarian.
Amen.
And so there's
only you guys in a room. Nobody will agree on what a libertarian.
Oh, exactly. And so, but when it comes to the pro-life issue or pro-choice or whatnot, it really comes down to, when do you believe life begins? And I can respect the person who is consistent in their beliefs that I don't want government telling people what to do with their rights. And right now, I don't necessarily know if a baby's life starts at conception, and their stance is I'd rather the government just stay out of it. I can respect that person, even though I fundamentally disagree with it, and I believe that we should outlaw it. And so, and especially like people like Candace Owens, who are saying that Tomi Lahren shouldn't be invited to conservative events, I think is ridiculous.
Why?
Because
Ridiculous. Why? Go ahead.
Specifically when you're talking about SAS, I would say 95% of those speakers are pro-life, and probably Tomi Lahren was probably one of the very few. And audiences are going to hear the opposite opinion either way. So what, in a very controlled environment, especially with students, why not have the one person who, she didn't even bring up this topic for one, which is also why
she'd get obliterated every second of the day if she did. It turns into a mess. It would turn into an absolute mess every time. So I mean, I can get why she wouldn't.
Yeah. So why the idea that she shouldn't be invited to conservative events, I think, is ridiculous. And that if someone has a bad idea, did not kick them out of the quote unquote conservative movement, but continue to talk about those issues and have those discussions. And, we've seen conservative leaders change their mind on different issues, and people change their mind. So instead of kicking Tomi out of the conservative movement, who knows, she may come around on this issue.
I'd like to see her do something conservative first, but I mean, that's just me. I mean, my goodness, just pro free speech, pro 2A, and pro small gov. That's libertarian stance. And that's stuff that I think I'm pretty much down with for the most part too, but it's not conservative, it's just libertarian. But you can't just claim the conservative title and then go off with Caitlyn Jenner for governor and all these things, abortion, and so when it's not a conservative stance. And that's the issue that I have when we parade and we say, hey, that's conservative to people, and they're like, that's conservative. They look at Tomi and like, I don't want that to be an example of what's conservative to people, or have people look at that as conservative. And I do see it as an issue. Sure, maybe I don't think we should blackball her off of everything, but I might be a little bit wary depending on what other stuff she's going to come up with next. I think she's kind of priming herself for a spot to get on The View. And if that happens, and she gets on The View, it's going to be pretty, I don't want to look at that at all. That's going to be just nastiness all around.
I mean, it's the View. Who watches The View? Let's be honest.
It's money. It's a lot of money. That's how people still give that crap money when they tune in and they give it views. But
you know what?
It's just,
you know what? I'll say this about Tomi Lahren. I don't know much about her, but I was pretty I was pretty upset that when she came out as pro-choice. And to go off of what you were saying a little bit, hello, Andrew.
crash my live one more time.
But to go off from what you were saying, Austin, it does go back to when you believe life actually begins. I believe in the science. The science proves that life begins at conception. I mean, there is science now that 21 days after a baby is conceived, you can hear the heartbeat. It's a little faint, but you can hear the heartbeat. So something has to be growing inside of you, and what is growing inside of you is a human being with rights and individual liberty and individual freedom. So for her to not be with that and to even try to call herself a libertarian, I'd say she is a social liberal with with some economic conservative values. She can call herself an economic conservative and pro 2A. That's totally fine. But I don't even think she's a libertarian. I wouldn't even go that far. I think she is undecided. She needs to stay independent, and that's okay to be an independent. I mean, we on whether you're on the right or the left, you're looking for independence to win an election anyway. So.
So here's my thing too. It wasn't necessarily that she said that she was pro-choice that I didn't like her. I was actually upset with. It was her reasoning when she gave the reasoning for why she was pro-choice, because she said she was a constitutional. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what is that? Is that supposed to reference the Constitution? Because I don't see anywhere in the Constitution that references, the right to, to kill a baby or anything of the sort, or anything about abortion at all. But that was her reasoning, and I'm just like, that's kind of lame. I mean, it was pretty lame at the time when I heard it first. I was like, yo, what? Like, that was just like, it was just kind of like the lamest excuse ever. I'm like, if you're gonna stand by and make say what you are, then back it, but don't like throw the Constitution under the bus for your personal decision on this or personal belief on that. Like, don't throw a whole founding document under bus for this. It makes no sense.
Well,
So
I think she was
that.
pointing to individuals' rights, and so if you believe that it's not a baby's life, then, and if let's just say it wasn't, then I would end up falling on Tommy's side in regards to the government shouldn't be telling people what to do with their bodies. Now, obviously that's not what we believe, but I think that's her line of thinking, is the government shouldn't be involved in people's life and telling them what they should do. The only difference in what she believes and what we believe is that there's another individual that she's not taking into account for.
Yeah. The whole, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.
Oh.
I mean, the old libertarian, like, come on, Tommy,
Also,
to hurt people, like, we're not supposed to hurt people, man. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? I'll also say to this: if you actually read the briefs of Roe v. Wade, it was actually a woman's right to privacy to make that decision between her and her doctor, and they equated that to the 14th Amendment, which was the Equality Amendment, which you're not giving a woman an equal right to her body or to her privacy in this instance, if you're not giving her a right to an abortion, even up to 9 months. Now, there's a lot of fallacies with that argument. I would love for the chance to get to debate Earl Warren on that issue, because that was his court that ruled on that. But Tommy's line of thinking on that, of course, I agree with you all. She did not take into that account. But she also thought, I'm also believing she believed it was a right to privacy, that it's a woman's inherent right to make a decision with her and her doctor, which of course is malarkey, because you're talking about another human being. But I digress. Austin, if you don't know, I'm the one that does most of the legal stuff and the historical stuff on here. So
No, it's good.
I mean, yeah, I think now that we know, like, as long as you have your doctor with you, you can go murder people. So, I mean, I think after this show, me and my doctor, we're about to go pay a visit to some people. You're
in Detroit. I mean, you can probably do a lot. I mean, I don't know.
You're probably not wrong. I mean, I moved out the city. I'm in the suburbs now. I can't do anything.
You're in the burbs. Okay. All right. Next one. I think we're going to find a lot of common ground here. This is going to be a great, I almost say like it's gonna be kind of a crapping on fest, but let's get into it anyways. You got Dan Crenshaw. Why not? Let's get into Dan Crenshaw here. Because here's the thing, like background preface, man. Dan Crenshaw gets made fun of by Pete Davidson. We're like, oh, what the heck? The guy's a military veteran hero. IED like blew up and took out his eye. Oh my goodness. Okay. And he gets into Congress. He's the hottest thing out there, since sliced bread. And he's crushing it. And then all of a sudden you got red flag laws. And then you see pulling troops out of Afghanistan, and he's not necessarily for that. He wants to keep troops in there, and he wants to. And now there's still those people, the hard red right Republicans, are Dan Crenshaw's the man. We got to stand by Dan. And there's people that are just like, man, this guy's kind of buns. like he's kind of buns, man. Like I don't know how I feel about this guy anymore. Like I don't really, and I see him, and like I don't want to because I got the people watching, but like turning into a rhino slowly day by day is scaring me, and it's something that like I can't stand more than anything else is somebody that claims to be on your side but ends up doing things that are in the opposite of your own interest. They claim to be your friend. I don't like that at all, and I see that happening day by day with that guy, and I'm worried, man. I'm bummed because it would have been really, really cool if that guy really would have stuck up for us and everything, but I don't know. What do you guys think about old Dan Crenshaw here coming through in there?
Well, honestly, this may surprise you, but I actually am more fair with Crenshaw on the gun stuff, even though I believe that all gun laws are infringements and whatnot. But I think he got a bad rap for that conversation he was having about the red gun. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk. Thank you. And he was talking about that. And he was essentially saying, I would support the red flag laws if they would keep guns out of people's hands. And people freaked out. But in that same sentence, he said, but we've never found one that essentially couldn't be used against law-abiding citizens. But everyone focuses on that first part of what he's talking about. Freaked out. Conservatives get triggered too. And so people got triggered. Yeah. And so I don't, on that specific issue, I don't necessarily think Crenshaw is pushing for red flag laws. Now, when it comes to, him being a neocon, as a libertarian, not down for that at all. My biggest issue, because I was a big Crenshaw fan for a while, and my biggest issue was when he essentially blamed Trump for January 6th. I didn't think that was the good move. He said, basically, I'm not voting for impeachment, but essentially I should be. And just
he threw him under the bus. Absolutely.
He did.
And that's the thing. He's not a team player. And that's another thing I didn't like, was not being a team player there. I'm like, Dan, we're not going to win with things like this happening all the time. When people like you just like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, so I wasn't a fan of that. And then he went and defended Liz Cheney. So he's throwing Trump under the bus, defending Liz Cheney. And it was just a really bad sequence of events. I think that Crenshaw is actually a pretty good dude at the end of the day. I think he's a deep thinker. He likes talking through things. At the end of the day, I disagree with him because I think he is a neocon. He's willing to use military, and he's willing to have bigger government than I'm willing to. But at the end of the day, I think he's a decent guy. We'll see in the future if that assessment holds up, though.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's a decent guy. I mean, my profile picture is still a picture with me and him. Then again, I just won't take another picture. But I think he's a nice guy. I think that he has good intentions. Now, his road to those intentions, I don't agree with. My biggest issue, which, Christian, I'm not sure if you saw this, but this was on when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast. And obviously, Joe Rogan is very big into smoking the medicinals. And he was doing that on the show, and they were talking about it. And Dan Crenshaw has drinking scotch in his hand, and he's talking about how he does not understand medical or recreational marijuana, would never support it, things like that. And it was extremely hypocritical, where he was like, well, why would you smoke it recreationally? There's no need, as he's drinking alcohol at the same point. And it's very tone deaf in a way. And that's where I was like, he's kind of like, it was boomer-esque. It was like you're not understanding where you are, and that's where I get like neocon vibes from him, and that's where I'm like, I don't think I would support him if he went for higher office or anything like that. I like I said, I think he's has good intentions, but everything that's lined up against him. And that sometimes happens when you're the most popular guy, which I mean, he was for a while and still kind of is. Everything you say is scrutinized always. And so when he says something stupid, which he has done now multiple times, or says something wrong, or even starts off wrong, it's going to be the headline. So especially conservative media, because Austin, like you said, we get triggered. So like, I don't know. He's iffy. He's on thin ice.
Yeah. You know what they say? They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I mean, that's
you're very fair. Like, very fair.
Exactly. And that's why I'm a libertarian. You know?
I mean, it's a good intention. Here you just go boom, just let it all blow up. All right.
Yeah. I don't know what house seat he's in. I know he's in Texas, but right now Dan Crenshaw's only concern needs to be with the constituents and actual voters of that House seat in Texas. If he goes for higher office, then he needs to be concerned with those constituents and those constituents. But I believe as long as those constituents, or at least 50% plus one in that district, are happy, then that's all he needs to worry about. That's all I got to say.
All right, let's break into it. So, adult entertainers and conservative events. Should they be welcome at conservative events?
Oh, wow.
Should they be welcome?
This is where it gets,
it's rough. Here we go. Here we go.
I'll go first, but like, you know, I completely understand all sides to this argument. I really do. Personally, I think that it is bad optics. No matter what way you take it, if you let them in, then you have kids in the same room and all that, and it's terrible optics on that side. But you kick them out and you talk about free speech, it's also bad optics, and it doesn't look good. It's a double-edged sword, and you can't win at the end of the day. Personally, though, I do think that my libertarianism, you know, we're private. It's a private event. You're allowed to kick anyone out that they want, but also at the end of the day, is it worth it? But I do think her intentions, though, were that she knew what was going to happen. She knew that she was probably going to get kicked out. And one way that I know that is because she used her name, and I don't think that's her real name. I mean, I'm not an expert at her, who she is, but I don't believe that's her real name. So
I would not believe so either. But yeah, it's again, like you said, a private event with a private organization, and we got students there. And especially if we're launching Turning Point Faith of all things, I don't think it's a great, fantastic idea to have that, be, in attendance there. If you want to go to the Libertarian Con, you want to go to any other crazy thing, Vermin Supreme or whatever, Alex Jones, and go crazy, hog wild, man, have at it. But when it's our own private thing or whatever it might be, and in regards to calling it conservative, I don't think it should be welcome whatsoever. They have adult cons, whatever crap for that stuff anyways, as it is. Just go there if you want to go meet that person. Don't show up and then self-promote. And then when you self-promote, go to your Twitter profile, live tweeting how you're at the event. The propped up tweets a very graphic image of yourself just fully naked. No, absolutely not. I'm not having it. I don't think it's hypocritical whatsoever, especially given our mission statement and what we're seeking to do. It doesn't fit in with it whatsoever. I don't see how it fits at all, but that's me. And I don't think it should be anywhere around us, especially with what we're trying to do. With the movement, I think the movement's got to be based around the family and creating families and having, a strong family unit come through. And that does not help whatsoever, man. When you got high school kids taking photos, saying very bad things next to said person, it's really, really bad. It's really bad.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I completely agree. And I think what hasn't the people who are upset that Brandy was kicked out, I think they aren't putting enough emphasis on the fact it's a private property. It's a private event, and especially as libertarians, private property is a huge value of ours. So we don't have to let anyone in that we don't want to. Now, on a principled stance, especially as someone who, even though I disagree with her career of choice and not down for that, I think that there's no problem having people that come to your event that spend money on a VIP ticket and come and sit down in a crowd of thousands of people and doesn't do anything and isn't causing any trouble, isn't dressed scandalously. So on a principled side, I can, get on board with not kicking her out. But then at the same time,
if that person had done it differently, they probably would have been okay. Now you really think about it.
Probably.
If she wasn't tweeting about it with her, you know what's on her Twitter. Like that's my point. It was her intentions that got her removed because she knew what was going to happen. I mean, somebody was going to look at the tweet and that's exactly why I don't feel bad for her. Because if they came in and somebody was just like, and then looked at her name and was like, I know who you are, get out, and she wasn't doing anything, then that would be worse. But I really think that she came in to make a mess of it. I don't know her. I don't know if she actually is a conservative. I don't know if she's a progressive that wanted to troll the event. I have no idea anything about this lady. So I don't know really what the deep down intention was to come into the event, but I can just smell that it wasn't good intentions.
Agree.
Well, I have one question. Was she refunded her money?
Absolutely was. Sure thing. Sure was.
Okay,
we actually have that.
Okay,
then cool.
then kicking her out was fair. If she was not getting a refund at all, I would make the argument you could not kick her out. But as long as she got her money back, or at least was offered a full refund, the point is moot.
Well, I also argue she probably, her OnlyFans, I'm sure, exploded after all that. So she is fine money wise. She's fine money wise.
Oh no, it's not. It's not
loaded up instantly afterwards that were mocking the organization and the people within the organization right after. Like she already had shirts preloaded and ready to sell, right off. It was like, oh, you saw this coming. You already knew this was going to happen. I'm not buying it.
Well, it's not really the fact. The fact of the matter is she would have an upper legal hand if she would not have been refunded the money by you all refunding. Goodness gracious, I can't speak. By you all refunding the money to her, that puts you guys out of a legal dispute with her, and therefore you can kick her out because now it's almost as if she didn't pay to come in. It's almost as if she's trespassing at that point. But at least the offer was made. At least she got her money back. It's not that she's hurting for money, obviously, but just from a legal standpoint, she needed to at least been offered her money back at that point. Of course, I'm not for adult entertainers coming to conservative events. I don't believe it's a conservative thing. Maybe it's a libertarian thing. I don't know. I've asked these two libertarians that are up here, but I know for me, I know for the organization I work for, that would not fly. Especially we garner a lot more high school students than most organizations. So I'm not for it. Well, but make sure the legal standpoints are done and out of the way.
One thing that I would
about that at all. It was fine.
Yeah, one thing that I want to mention is that if you looked at any media outlet that was reporting on it when it was going down, every single one was saying that she was an invited guest. Big lie, fake news, not a thing. And that's where everyone was like, "Oh, this is hypocrisy." And that, yes, it would have been hypocrisy if she was invited, but she was not. Look at her badge; it was purple or whatever those color badges were. She paid for it out of her own money that she has plenty of, like Austin said. So I mean, that's not hypocritical, and I just wanted to point that out because that is where everyone was like making the case that they invited her and then kicked her out. What is this?
So, like, just to go along this kind of same topic, especially Christian and Omar, who aren't the libertarians, what are your thoughts on, a lot of conservatives want to make porn illegal? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Let's talk.
Sorry. Sorry?
No, you're good. You're good because it goes into this. It goes.
Okay. Cool. The Big Tent.
All right. The whole the movement as well. People that want to make it illegal. I mean, it's pretty destructive. I'm not gonna lie.
You said you want to make it illegal?
No, Omar's. I mean, that's the question Austin presented.
I thought you said I do want to make it illegal. I just want to make sure I get you.
I'm making the argument.
More.
Hold up. I'm making the argument. I'm gonna make the argument. I'll make the argument.
Make the argument.
When this industry is fueled by human sex trafficking, it's been proved time and time again. I think there's a legitimate issue, and until you can get the handle on that, there's really no handle on it whatsoever. It's got to go away. It's got to go bye-bye. I don't know what. It's not building strong men. It's not building strong families in America. And that's why China's eating our lunch and everywhere else across the country, because we don't have masculine men. Our men are emasculated. They're just absolutely being feminized from the bottom up and everything. It's really bad. It's a bad issue. This doesn't help with it whatsoever. And it's pretty destructive, all across the board. I can see why people want to. It's not conducive to much. Doesn't really help. I mean, just settling on the idea that, hey, it's my freedom to go off and just burn my brain and fry it. I mean, like, okay, cool, but it's still not great because it's exposed to young men, young kids all the time. There's no way to put a hamper on that right now. There's no way to put a lockdown on that. And until there's a legitimate solution proposed where you can actually eliminate that from happening and eliminate people from being trafficked all the time, and this, I'm not for it myself. I can't support it. And that's no, I can't say I could believe it should be legal. No, go ahead, Omar.
Not to give you all a history lesson, but we've gone this route before with prohibition.
Speed it up, Omar. Speed it up.
Leave me alone. You gonna stop it? We've gone this route before with prohibition. Okay, morally, it's bad to be drunk. It really is. It goes against the Bible to be drunk, not necessarily to drink. That's not necessarily a sin. However, we saw what happened. People still did it anyway. And then we have an entire amendment to the Constitution revoking another amendment, which I believe is a waste of freaking paper, right? So morally, that's a good thing. Legally, and just knowing how America is and always has been, it wouldn't stand.
Well,
I think it's a waste. I think it's a waste of time. I think it's not a waste of time to deal with human trafficking, to deal with the horrors of what the porn industry does. But getting rid of porn altogether, that is a waste of time. Because it's going to be revoked. Again.
You put it on camera, it's considered a film, but if you go pay somebody outright in cash and there is no camera around, then it's prostitution.
So make it legal. So make it legal.
No, that's a bad idea.
I was waiting for that.
That's a bad thing. That's really
come on now.
What's coming from the border right now, Chris? Drugs and people getting
and they should be legal and not trafficked. And look, listen here. It's almost like you create a black market when you make something illegal, you raise the value of such a thing, and bad people do that. It's almost like this happens.
Undercutting the market.
Al Capone.
They're still
all these Mexican cartels. They're
I just love these two.
They're going on this cycle.
I love these two.
Because there's people involved, though. It's different.
There are people involved in all of it. I mean,
people are being sold, not booze. People are being sold.
Okay, but people are going to be sold whether or not it's illegal or legal. We should focus on the issue of people being sold, not people watching porn. That is not an issue.
But what we consider did it like what makes the delineation now? It's freaking A. Like it's really
but I'm saying though that if we really want to solve the issue, the crime at hand should not be watching porn or creating porn. It should be trafficking women. It should be forcing women into the industry of taking children. That is despicable, disgusting, and people who do that deserve to die. Yeah. That is just my opinion on that.
Chris.
But we're not going to get anywhere by making porn illegal, except for putting some 16-year-old kids in prison because they Google boobs. Come on now.
I'm not looking to do that. That's what I'm saying.
That's not. That's where you were getting at.
It's what big government.
That's where you were going.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing.
I'm gonna throw 16-year-olds in prison. Did I ever hint at like let's go through?
What happened with weed? How many young black kids are in prison right now because they had an ounce? That's my thing. You give them an inch, they're gonna take an ounce and they're gonna throw you in prison. Come on,
Chris. I'm glad you mentioned the kids. I'm glad you mentioned the kids. I'm gonna tell you why. I was watching Tamron Hall, and that woman is a piece of work. Godly. I was watching her show one day, and she had a family that that and the family does this. The little kids too, from like what 4 years old on up. They have stripper poles in their house, and they teach the kids how to be on the stripper pole. They say it's for exercise and for family fun. I'm like, this is not family fun. And Tamron Hall ought to be ashamed of herself putting that on national and international television. I was disgusted. I was mortified. I wanted to go into the television screen and blank slap her. I'm so serious. That's
I don't know.
That's really taking it too
I
far.
appreciate you not using any profanity.
Yeah.
I really appreciate
we are a family show. You know, we're talking about
I said blank. I said blank. I did right.
I will say, you know, as a father, and I love that I can say that as a father, I think that it really is that's disgusting, and that's, you know, I mean, people throw around child abuse a lot these days, especially with the mask thing. They throw around child abuse a lot, but you know, I would say that putting that on TV, your kids on a stripper pole, that's some form of child abuse. That's like, you know, an invasion of privacy or like sexualizing your children, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just bad.
Them doing the act wasn't on television, but them talking about it, saying, yes, we do this with our kids and X, Y, and Z. That was terrible.
Walking. That's exercise. Come on now.
Go to the park and be a kid and play outside. My goodness, where do we go? What happened? Scrape your knee, put dirt on it. Man,
it's the television. That's what happened. TV.
Well, to go back to the point or when you're talking about like prostitution, should it be illegal or should it not? I think something that's important to remember is that you have situations where there are women that have may not necessarily have been their rights infringed on, and that they're being held at gunpoint and, you know, being forced to commit these acts, but there's ones that have been pressured into it and they want out, but they can't go to the police or ask for help because they are doing a technical legal activity, and so they don't go for help. And so I think at the end of these days, you're hurting the people you're trying to help who want out, and you're not really helping anyone, and just like most government regulations isn't actually helping the problem and putting innocent people in harm's way.
Like, I just want to. What
still doesn't work itself out though? Just like people do it, it's not going to work itself out.
But one extension of that, real quick though, I want to extend off that point. It's almost like all those people who are afraid to call 911 when they're ODing because they're going to be arrested for having drugs in their system, so they die. So instead of, you know, people being like, oh well, you know, I'm dying, I took a dangerous substance, please help me. They're like, I'd rather die. And so that's
just stupid. That's absolutely stupid. That's just stupid.
You know what, Christian, I'm gonna have to say this. If it's between me dying or me living like I'm dead, which one is better?
Not like that, but it's just like, oh, I might go to.
But that's what they're thinking. That's what they're thinking.
I feel like when you're, you know, I don't know, whatever drugged up state you are, you probably aren't thinking the most clearly, but that is a thought that a lot have, and that's something, you know, that's one reason I'm so big anti-drug war on drugs. You know, it's because it hurts way more people than it saves. And you know, you have so many conservatives talking about, you know, the war on drugs nowadays, or talking about the drugs coming over the border, and that is all fueled by the war on drugs. There would not be a market if it was decriminalized and legal. You have that coming across the border, and that they use that as the excuse to build the wall, the big beautiful wall with the big beautiful door in the middle. That's what they always say. And the reason that it's happening is because of conservative laws that have. I mean, Joe Biden did that.
There's a lot of bipartisan support.
Exactly. I said Joe Biden.
There's a lot of bipartisan. But also, here's the thing, though, about people ODing and drugs. I've seen plenty of videos of people that have OD'd and got Narcan and then proceeded to shoot cops and firefighters.
And those people
have an issue. But now, like, we have people showing up to these calls. They're going to help, and they're the ones dying for some low life bums that OD'd on drugs.
I agree.
I'm not saying that's the whole thing. Like,
I'm not gonna say that
not
they're
necessarily
evil.
just so like, oh man, I'm gonna call and like did it. Like, bro, that stuff ain't just so cut.
No, those people are. I think those people are terrible, and they're. I mean, it's awful that those situations happen, but I mean, it's what happens more. People OD and are afraid to call for help, or don't have the access to call for help because it's illegal, or that firefighter gets shot because they Narcan a drug addict. I mean, the former happens a lot more, unfortunately.
Dude, but I don't want to sacrifice. But here's the thing: I value the life of that firefighter a whole lot more than a junkie OG.
I'm not saying let's put the junkie over the firefighter.
That's my top
just
concern.
let the junk. If the junkie wants to be a junkie, let him be a junkie, and if they die, they die. That's their prerogative. But if you have like right now the situation we have now, they're going to continue using. They're going to continue hurting others. They're going to continue doing illegal activities to get their substance, to get what they're trying to do. It's just the system we have right now is terrible.
The whole thing is,
for
if we
both
do
sides.
legalize these drugs and let it go, how does that affect with kids, children, being around kids? And
You heavily regulated. You do not. You put an age restriction on it, and you card everybody. In Mississippi, we card everybody. It works for the most part.
Legalize all of it. So how you gonna have to see black tar heroin just float around and kids are around in the house? How is it if drugs are legal?
If I can't get black tar heroin in my Happy Meal, this is not America. Let's be honest.
Well, I think there's
now, Chris, that's a little too far.
I think at the end of the day, like, you know, you can get into some of this stuff that's kind of funny to talk about. But at the end of the day, a lot of conservatives have this issue where they can't disconnect the making something legal and honoring people's individual rights to make the wrong decision. And instead of staying consistent with a philosophy that says that they want to honor the individual's rights and eliminate government, instead they bend their principles and decide, let's use big government for stuff that I believe in.
It's not just big government. The government has a role in society, in a sense, to protect its people to an extent. Not saying how big or whatever it is, that's what we're going to disagree on. But if we're not putting the people first and our society and growing men into being good people and making our society for people to be good people, and we just let them go, just whatever, in the name of freedom, what good is it? A society that doesn't respect freedom it's going to be bad. It's going to turn out awful. Another thing too is conservatives on the right is we say, we can't do that. That's overstepping our boundaries. It's big government. And then the left goes and crushes us and stomps on us every second of the day when they wield the power. We wield the power. We don't do anything every time and we get crunched. Now we see big tech killing us. We see China eating our lunch. We see all these things happening. We're just like, we're going to be principled and not do anything. You know, like it kills me. That kills me on the inside every day of my life. And that's right now.
I'll say this. What we should be doing, we should be cutting the role of government when we're in power. But here's the thing: when everybody's in power, nobody wants to cut.
Really grateful for all your commentary and input tonight. Very, very insightful. I'm gonna have to check out though. Thank you for everything. Have a wonderful weekend.
Can you just come back in a few minutes? Can you?
I almost lost my train of thought.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry. Second special guest.
Second special guest.
Okay, Omar, go ahead. Go ahead.
If I can get back on track. Okay, so when people are in power, they don't want to cut their power. Principles go out the window once you get power. But it's going to take people giving up. We're not giving up. Giving up power and going off of principle and reducing power. It's gonna take real principled people to reduce power. That's what I want to see. I want to see the role of government get smaller.
What are you talking about exactly right there? I'm trying to follow.
I want to see government get smaller and smaller. Now, technically, and I've been told by my old professor, government is never really going to get smaller. It's always going to grow. But if we can reduce that growth to 1,000%, we're doing really, really good. That is where we need to focus on. We'll get more change. We'll destroy our national debt. We'll pay it off. And we'll get things back in line and back in control once we reduce our power and reduce the growth of federal government. That's honestly what we have to do. Whether you're conservative or libertarian.
All right.
Well, and I think there's a distrust. Like usually, people that are kind of falling in the line of thinking as Christian tend to be Christian conservatives who have a morality that I completely agree with. but difference in how we implement that into society. And I think that a lot of these Christians look at, oh my gosh, if there's no government telling people what they can and can't do, society's going to fall apart. We're going to have a bunch of, a degenerate society. Well, one, we have the degenerate society already, for one. Two, I think that I think that what people like Christian or people who fall in that kind of line of same thinking aren't necessarily taking into account is that people worship government, even if they don't know that. They look to government to save them. They look to government for welfare, for meaning, for jobs, for security. And if you take that out of the way, where they're going to go? They're going to go to the churches. They're going to go to their communities. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to have more of that kind of Christian morality when people are accountable to each other and not necessarily to government. And I think it's going to end up having more of what Christians want, but they have to be willing to give up this ideal of using big government.
Well, no, but I think we're not going back in that direction no matter what we do here, especially with a nihilistic point of view where people just say, go ahead and do whatever the heck you want. People aren't going to come back to the churches anytime soon. It's sad and it's bad. I don't know. Going to churches lately, man, it seems to be dying. It's sad, but you go in there and you see old people, nothing but old people all the time. There used to be a point in time back before the civil rights movement, the churches used to help out in the community. They took care of single mothers. There weren't that many of them. They took care of the poor, impoverished in the community. They had community centers open. It was great. They had a great outreach out there. Sure, there's growing a government is bad. And I'm not saying use the government to go and make everything good, but there's a lot of times the free market can't solve and fix itself, and we have to have something happen. Examples here: COVID lockdowns. Ron DeSantis just said we're not doing it anymore, but there's still going to be people that are saying, well, local government should have the right to choose. No, how about they don't have the right to choose to infringe upon my individual natural rights? We're going to need somebody to come in there and actually grant us that somebody's going to help it out. I'm not saying that's the answer every time, but there are necessary needs in there for things to make it happen.
So you're for a regulated economy? I feel like you're for a somewhat regulated economy, and it doesn't just qualify itself as an economical issue, but also as a social issue.
If you want to know what my stance on the economy is, I'm a total free market guy until American workers, American people get hurt.
See, so exactly. So it's principle until things, it's not going around.
People are coming first, then what's the point? If our
what is the point? You lose the argument right there, because you're saying that I'm on this line, I'm on my principle until it doesn't go my way, and then I'm going to change
our country. America. I'm an American before I'm a capitalist. Absolutely, 100% every day of my life. Yes.
And what you're saying is you trust big government more than the free markets in certain situations.
You know what I am?
Well, no, there's certain things that happen. Say, I'm more, when it comes to China and making trade deals, I don't think it's the best idea to go out there and go, free trade with China when we're getting ripped off all the time. And I actually think it's more beneficial to try to raise wages here in America and bring jobs back. We might have to pay more as it is. Okay, we're going to have to pay more. People are going to come back and get to work in America. It's going to boost, GDP isn't the answer to all, but GDP will come up. It's a great thing to do. And I care more about the people here than anything else. Amazon made out like bandits during the pandemic and the shutdown. Well, not on byproduct of the free market. We all know that. But, I'm not all about emboldening these people just to go off and just make crap for cheap overseas and then screw people over here, mom and pop shops and small businesses. I'm not always about that myself. That's what I stand on.
Well, when it comes to corporations and monopolies, and it's concerning to see the conservative movement start to change their tone, because it's essentially when they've seen the situation with big tech, situation with some big corporations, conservatives are starting to change their tune and say, actually, let's use big government. Let's use big government in this situation.
I think it's time to wield some power, absolutely, because we're going to get wiped off the face. We're going to get wiped off the map, and it won't even matter anymore. Our opinions won't be heard, Austin. We're going to be gone. We will not be here. So
Black Friday won't be a thing anymore.
But principle is we don't do anything. We get wiped off with diligence rather than, hey, how about we stick it to them and say, screw you, we're going to be here to stay.
because you're bending principle and you're not trusting the free market.
Well, the principle hasn't got us anywhere. The principle's got us losing the past 4 decades. We've been eating crap because of principle.
This is so much fun, guys.
As a point, when you can say though, as a point, because I in this specific principle, you could, or in this specific example, you can really say that these giant corporations and these massive social media conglomerates, they were not created through free market. We currently, I would not argue that we live in a free market economy. So using government to revert back to a free market economy, that's the only way you can go back. Really, you can make that argument, Christian, saying that we need to push back because government created this. That's the only argument that I would say is valid.
That's what I'm saying. When Christian, when we wield power again, going off of everything you see in the history books, we are not going to do right by it. We're going to do either what's in our own interest or what's in the interest of money. And for that reason, I really don't trust anybody. I don't trust any of them.
Populist libertarians should get on the same board when we say special interest plays too much of a role in government right now, where people don't help out their constituents for any reason, for the fact of that they're paid off by whether it's ExxonMobil or whatever other special interests out there, big tech, Google, whatever it might be, to shut people up and not have a fight for us. I mean, I think we can all agree that's a big issue because people are paid off out there in Capitol Hill. I mean, it's pretty clear to see. But for sure. Yeah, it's just like, there's a reason why. Like, why aren't they doing right? It's because they're paid to not literally do right. That's why.
And then what's the solution? It would be government stepping in and putting an end to it, and that's where you really get to the.
But who in government is going to do it?
Somebody not bought out. Somebody has to be clean. Somebody has to be clean out there.
That's the thing. I mean, there really is no way to keep politics clean, and I mean, this would be a good argument to say we might have to scrub the plate clean and start over, because you have it to where how are you going to go back?
What do you mean by scrub the plate clean?
I'm not gonna go into that. I'm gonna be put on a watch list.
Wait, so you're calling for? Chris, are you calling for a constitutional convention right now?
I'm just saying that you have it to where you cannot go back where we are now, whether it's in the free market, whether it's in politics in DC. They're not going to give up power. They're not going to relinquish that. We're not going to go move towards a more free market system. That it's not going to happen. So you have to make that argument. How do we fix it? Because it's not going to be fixed through legislation. It will not happen.
Yeah, and when it comes to the corporations, like Chris was saying, at the end of the day, these are companies that were successful, and then they lobbied and got government regulation, got taxes raised on their industry, which they're big enough, it doesn't matter. But competition, new businesses have a hard time getting through. And so at the end of the day, if you look at most monopolies in American history, you can trace them back to the government and government intervening in the free market. And it's very difficult for companies. Yeah. And so instead, and now understanding that, conservatives are saying, well, let's use government and just get rid of it. Or instead, sticking to principle, instead of, I hate what big tech's doing, but they are a private company.
Is it a public good now or public utility? Because now they're giving public health announcements and they're doing all these things. Is it just a private company, or are they? Because they're taking that role as a public utility, man, for the greater good here, for the common good of the people. So that's my thing, is I see them more as a public utility now than a private company. You still see them as a private company. And that's where we differentiate right there for sure.
Yeah. Well, there's definition wise, there is a 50% owner. If Facebook, Zuckerberg is still 50% owner. That is his private property owning Facebook. And instead of trying to use...
We okay? All right, good.
Is Facebook publicly traded? I just want to ask that. Is it publicly traded?
Yes.
It is not a private company.
Let me check my Robin.
It is not private. If it is publicly traded, it is no longer private. That's why it's called
Zuckerberg owns 51%. So he owns the majority of the company. So it's still private.
For now.
Facebook is publicly traded, yes.
But he's the owner for now. What if he gets bought out?
And it'll be someone else's private property. At the end of the day, we don't bend that line of private property, because when you crack that line of a principle of, all right, we're willing to go against private property rights now, that's a slippery slope and somewhere you do not want to go. The solution is deregulating this industry, tax breaks and deregulating and introducing competition.
Tax breaks? You want to give them tax breaks?
Yeah.
Or give other companies tax breaks? Here's the thing: these people are getting breaks, and they're getting subsidized from the government already as it is.
Yeah. Completely get rid of subsidies. I as a libertarian, I hate all taxes for the most part. So I am fine with them not paying taxes. I'm fine with no regulation. And then they're going to actually have to compete in a free market where new companies can easily come in and start to take and compete against them. And big companies who have to compete are going to be a lot less likely to infringe on, people's speech. And so, but the thing is, conservatives don't trust the free markets.
I don't trust it because it's been crapping on us for the past few decades.
Because we don't live in a free market economy.
You just said it was because of government. You just said that
all the time. But like this is not going to solve itself. We're just let people in. It's not just going to solve itself that way. This power is not going to be. They're not going to yield any of it. They don't follow their own rules that they put in their fourth and their guidelines that they put out there. That's the one thing that we're just asking for is them to be consistent with what they say in their privacy policy and their terms and conditions. They're not. If they could literally just adhere to their terms and conditions, their privacy policy, I wouldn't really have an issue with them. But they just erase people and get rid of them because they say whatever. ADL wrote a piece on you, you're gone. Goodbye. Like that's what I have a problem with because they don't adhere to their own rules that they have written in so. And I think that's a problem, and they need to go ahead and do so. And them not doing so, that's a total big problem. And that's why I'm like, I don't think necessarily just let's build our own Facebook isn't a winning option right now. Let's build our own Facebook. Parler's not going to do it. Getter's not going to do it. None of these platforms are going to do it whatsoever. It's not going to happen. And if we want to take back the culture and win, we're going to have to do it on these platforms where everybody's at. That's the only way we're going to win.
And the way conservatives should do that, and I think there's an issue where conservatives are telling young conservatives not to go to college, is that instead of telling conservatives don't go to college, telling them go to colleges, go to conservative colleges so you don't get indoctrinated, but get educated, get skills to where you can compete in the free market, where you can go and actually be the next Zuckerberg and create a product that people love and actually have, conservatives in places of institutional power. And, for example, like there's things that conservatives can be doing that can influence culture, get them in institutional power. Like, for example, CNN was up for sale recently. What if a bunch of conservatives
buy it?
Yeah, why aren't conservatives buying it when there's opportunities to get institutional powers? Where you're looking at a situation where conservatives haven't been playing offense and we're getting our ass kicked, and instead of looking for institutional powers and coming up with good strategies, let's use the government. That's the wrong answer.
I mean, it's just we're not taking advantage of it and everything. But if we stick by just the principles won't matter if we don't have a dang country. If it's all done, it's all over. None of this matters. But we were principled, but there's no more country to have anymore.
Well, Christian, think about every. I want to just say this.
We got to slide to the last topic before we run out of time. I want you guys to get in on this too. But go ahead, Omar. Go ahead before we do this.
Think about every great movement. Who did they control or who did they manipulate? Think about for some people who, if this relates better to you, it relates to me. I watch a lot of Scandal. Olivia Pope manipulated the media every single time. Until we do that, we are not going to win a darn thing. We're not going to win we're not going to win more Americans over to our side. We're not winning the argument because we don't control the media. We don't even have a say in the media. We want to retreat to Fox, Newsmax, OANN. No, it's time to buy CNN now, buy MSNBC, or at least buy enough into it to where we really actually have
Fox
a place
isn't
at the
even owned
table.
by conservatives. Fox is owned by liberals. Fox isn't even owned by conservatives.
Buy back Fox. Buy back Fox.
Fox isn't even owned by conservatives right now.
Buy it back.
It's almost like all media has some sort of agenda that they're pushing, and they actually don't care about truth. And journalism has been dead for a couple decades. It's crazy, right? I've never heard anything such like that.
Anyways, immigration.
Immigration.
All right.
I mean, currently,
Lord.
we have a crisis on the southern border, we have for the past, decades and decades and decades that just haven't been reported on.
Mhm.
But there's crisis on the border. Politicians refuse to go out there and actually look at the problem. They go to El Paso when you got to go to the RGV instead, like the Rio Grande Valley, actually look at what's really going down in there, Laredo, Texas. You guys haven't already, check out Jorge Ventura. He's down there on the border, literally doing citizen journalism, live, with people that are going across the border. Very, very eye-opening and very crazy to see. But overall, the whole topic here with immigration is just what's it looking like now and in the future here for the time being. And there's an issue right here going across as far as people coming, drugs coming, and everything else into the country unchecked. You can get arrested in the Capitol building not wearing a mask, because of COVID, but people get sent into this country with no mask and no vaccination, no nothing. They're just walking around all over the place. So, it's crazy, a little double standard that we're having here. We just, we go harp on our own citizens more than we do people that aren't supposed to be here. But I kind of want to get your take, your libertarian stance on immigration, and kind of go around with everybody else and see what you guys are thinking here. And, what should be the plan here in the future, especially with everything going on.
What are your thoughts, Chris? Go for it.
All right. Well, there are about 5 things I think the government should do, and keeping our borders secure is one of those things. Without a border, we really aren't actually a country.
Charlie, that's not nice. That is not nice.
You're killing me, bro.
He just assumed my race.
So do we have to write out a pass or something? No, but one of the things the government should be doing is making sure that we have secure borders. That is something to do with national security. That is one of the things the government actually should be doing. And just to kind of go off, Democrats do not care about people. Honestly, let's just say politicians don't care about people. They don't care about Pablo or anybody who's coming across that border and who needs asylum, who needs actual help. They don't care about Cubans. They don't care at all. You can die. The only reason they care that you're coming across that border is because you are going to hit that D on that voter slip in a couple years. That's all they care about. It does not matter. And so that is where I really have an issue with that. If I believe that they actually cared and they wanted people to get help and they wanted them to come to this country because it was so great, I'd have a little more sympathy. But I have no sympathy for them because they just want to buy voters, and that's really what they're doing. So it's disgusting. Let's build that wall.
Yeah, honestly, I'm right there with Chris in that regard, and which is interesting because libertarian depends on the libertarian you talk to, but the Libertarian Party, I believe their official stance is open borders, which I think is the thing I disagree with.
That's like ANCAP almost. That's just
why I don't vote for libertarian.
Yeah, that's straight ANCAP.
Yeah. Well,
private property, you go wherever you want. It's crazy.
Yeah, and actually, unfortunately, I do think the LP is highly influenced by too many anarchists, which is unfortunate. So
that's why I really feel like that's why you guys don't get the mainstream at all, because of those people that kind of bog it down with those types.
Because all the libertarians of the world are lost, and we all need to come back together and truly talk about. It's like we're just roaming the world with lost people.
Exactly, but yeah, no, that like Chris said, I think it's one of the few jobs of government, and I think it falls under national security, having a border. So yeah, nothing juicy there.
WIKH. Where is Kamala Harris? Wasn't she supposed to fix this problem? Okay, Biden opening up. No, and I think she did what, like a 30-minute speech somewhere somewhere in the South or on the Southwest, I believe, but that's about it. Where is she? Where are these folks? And where is the solution? The solution is not fully to close down the border, but to secure it. You bring more border agents, build the doggone wall. But my thing is, we should fix immigration. We do need real immigration reform. It should not take 10 years to get into this country illegally. I'm under that belief that it could be easier. or a better verification system that does not take as long. But if we're not playing by the rules, what are we doing? We are not following the rule. We are breaking the rule. We are breaking the law. We are then becoming illegals. That's what liberals do not understand. That's what they need to figure out. Because if I broke into Nancy Pelosi's house, what am I? A criminal. It's same basic principle. That doesn't mean they have criminal intent. That doesn't mean people coming overboard that have criminal intentions. A good many of them do. A good many of them don't. I'm not going to say that. But what I will say is, let's fix the immigration system. Let's have better policies. Let's hold these politicians accountable. But let's follow the rules until that happens. But I need to see immigration reform happen. Democrats have been on it, saying, "Oh, we need immigration reform. We need immigration reform." Hey, you got the presidency, quote unquote. You got the House of Representatives by 4 seats, and you got the Senate by Kamala Harris's tie-breaking vote. Do something. I'm sick of the complaint. I'm sick of the whining. Do something, then.
They are doing something. They're letting them into this country unchecked.
No, do something. Do something legal.
They're not
Republicans, please do something.
They're literally like not giving them a court date. They're just letting them go, letting them like, hey, like you don't have a court date.
I think the statistic that I saw was only 13% are going to the ICE center. 13% of illegals who are given a date to come to the ICE center are going and actually going there. Which, I mean, honestly, if you're going to the greatest nation on planet Earth, which we are, and you get a free pass, they're like, hey, we might kick you out. Come to this building in a week. And I'm not going. Are you stupid? Like, I'm going to go enjoy myself in this great country because that's, what I came here.
I'm going to hide out.
Exactly. I'm going to go hide out and change my name and steal somebody's social security number. And so, I mean, that's where there is an actual problem.
All right, and they just lost all chances of monetization. All right. Cool. Great.
Hey, look, we're on Facebook and YouTube. We already lost that a while ago. Can we stream on Parler? But I think this is where we really need to fight back. And I've said this plenty of times before. The GOP is completely spineless and will not do anything, even when they get power. We'll see in 2022 and 2024 what happens. But they're going to get power and they're going to sit up there. They're going to pound the gavel. They're not going to do anything. Nothing will get done. The wall will never get built. And we will always lose because this is funneling in votes. We cannot compete. And Republicans don't have enough babies to compete with this.
Replace this. No, we're not.
So we all got to get on this. You guys got to catch up to me. Start having some babies. Come on.
I know, right?
It's a work in motion. And Mom and Dad, I know you're watching. Don't take it like that. Don't take it like that. I promise. But I don't mean it like that. All right, but it's we're working on it. All right, but no, I mean I think it's a problem that has to be addressed. We're set so far back, especially with the workforce. We got to get people into jobs, unemployment, and inflation up through the roof. I think we got to put a severe moratorium on immigration until we figure this out, until we figure out who's in this country illegally, how many people are here, and then what our needs are based on this country, who needs to come in here. We need to stop going and putting like Mike Lee putting this HB1 visas into getting these tech guys in from India that are coming straight out of a caste system that are just taking jobs that American workers can fill no problem. I have an issue with that. What happened?
That's not why I have an issue with that.
But it takes away working class jobs from Black Americans that live here in this country. They showed at the Dole factory when they went and ICE and deported a bunch of people. Black people showed up the next day and took those jobs happily, and they were off to work right away. So we have to get this thing hemmed down. We got to take care of our people first, of course. That's what I'm always about, the American people above all. And then keeping the border safe and secure, man. It's a mess. The people coming across aren't safe. People in this country aren't going to be that much safer either, especially with whatever's coming through. It's a bad situation all around. And our the politicians are playing politics for their lives. It's a straight game to them. Kamala goes to the wrong part of the border like it's a joke. Oh, I'm in El Paso. Like, you go to the RGV Valley, go down there where you know where it's at. You go down where where the border crisis really is, but they won't do that. They don't want to look. If it's literally like a kid, like if I don't see it, it doesn't exist type of game with these people. It's so childish. But we really got to hem these things out. We got to get this stuff figured out. Until we do, it's a total problem. This is so bad. Man, we're gonna see and people I don't want people to die. I don't want people getting sick. I don't want children, anybody being affected. But that's going to continue happening until Republicans and Democrats quit shifting the issue across it. Next session. 2022, 2024, 2026. DACA later. We'll get to DACA later. We'll get to DACA. That's Congress's job, and Congress has yet to do anything about it. It's so lame, and you keep pushing it down. Just dumb. And if you want my stance on DACA, it's a really cold one because you got to send them back. That's my stance on DACA. Anyways, okay, all right. So that's my stance on that. But
now that you mentioned that, Christian, there was actually a bill, and this is a real dig on Democrats. When Democrats had a full lock on the House, I think 60 votes in the Senate, and President Barack Obama, they had a bill that I don't think it would have fixed immigration, but it would have addressed their needs and concerns, quote unquote. And Harry Reid, the then majority leader for the Senate, the Democrat from Nevada, he killed it. He killed his own bill. They have no reason to say anything or to ask Republicans on votes for immigration at all. They killed their own bill. Chuck Schumer was sitting there. Half of those Democrats that are in the Senate now were sitting right there when they saw their majority leader that they voted in killed that bill. Barack Obama was upset about it. Nancy Pelosi claimed she did all that work to get it through. Democrats are full of what.
Amen to that.
All right. Last spot here before we get off, but this is it's gonna be all encompassing. Is like, what's the future of the movement look like here? What does the future of the movement look like? And I'm genuinely concerned and worried that the right and the GOP and the conservative movement, all in all, are just gonna adopt Democrats from 4 years ago policy on things. All of a sudden, we're just gonna slowly go that way, but just slowly, just delayed. We're going to get there. We're going to delay, get there, delay, get there, delayed. 2 years ago, we're all saying that transgenderism is a mental illness and people like that need, help and like literally need to go to a doctor, like, because this is gender dysphoria. It's bad. Now we're normalizing and saying, hey, go ahead and go run for governor of California. I mean, this is, a short turnaround for something like this to happen. It's very, very short turnaround. So I'm just worried that we're becoming the left and we're doing things like just progressively getting along, not turning into anything different than what they are, just slightly delayed. And that's why I'm kind of worried that we're on that trajectory of where we're headed with things. And it doesn't help when your party's filled with a bunch of wusses and losers in Congress and the Senate. So it doesn't help at all. It really doesn't. But that's why I'm really worried with the way the movement's headed, in general. But I don't know. What do you guys see with the future of the movement? Somebody might be optimistic here. I don't know.
Well, I think you have to be optimistic. Otherwise, you can go to a dark place really, really fast. And when you genuinely believe the country is gone, there's nothing to live for, and it's all over, like you don't become proactive. And so I don't think that helps anyone. Even if at the end of the day, America's best days are behind us, that shouldn't be how we as a movement look at it. And it should be looked at as we're going to fight and as if it depends on us. And I think right now for the future of the conservative movement, it'll be interesting because I think we're seeing the battle of that right now because Republicans just lost the last election. And so right now people are grasping for power. People, ideas are grasping for power. Yeah. And so you're seeing a lot of turmoil.
It's crazy because 12 years ago, you saw the Tea Party movement come through, You saw that come through. Like, I don't know what's coming through. I don't think that's coming through this time around that we lost the presidency. But I mean, some of that stuff came through and it was like, oh, wow. And like, it's kind of died. But like, I don't know what's to come now, from that. Now that we've lost, like, where the energy is going to come from and what's going to be, what's going to be put to. Like, I don't know. So
honestly, if I'm predicting them, I think the movement, unfortunately, is going to go towards a bigger government conservatism. Right now, at least in the short term, I think that's
populism,
where it's heading.
You're going to go a little more populist.
I like to call it authoritarian conservatism.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, people then. All right.
I'm just messing. Yeah, but I think as a libertarian, I think we should stick to principle. And instead, because what happened is we have a Republican Party that says we're for a limited government. And so, let's say they're asking for this much of the pie, and they end up getting like maybe this much. As a libertarian, I'm asking for this big a difference. I'm realistic. A libertarian, where we're a libertarian society, we're not going to get this, but hey, we might get this because we're asking for more, and that's what we're shooting for. And Republicans aren't in that mindset. And so instead of playing footsie with big government, we should be looking towards eliminating a lot of it.
Not about so much playing footsie, but I think some things have to happen. I don't know that playing footsie, but I think there's certain things that none of this will matter. None of us talking, none of this will matter unless we secure election integrity and we take care of our elections and make sure the right people are voting who needs to be voting. And that, we have everything set in place for this next election cycle. It's not going to matter. None of this will matter, literally. And then we vote out the wrong people that aren't representing us in our districts that need to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. But I mean, yeah, sure. But I mean, it's none of that matters unless we secure election integrity. Literally none of that matters unless we take care of it. Honestly, that's how I see most everything. I'm like election integrity or nothing. What? Go vote for me. I'm like, is it going to count? I'm like, I feel bad. It's like, yeah, what's it going to?
I mean, but that's something that there are not a lot of Republicans at the moment who are fighting on it anymore.
No,
it seems like they've already forgotten about it, and so that's another point where the future of this movement. What really is it going to look like? I mean, are we going to see a red wave in 22 or 24? I'm not sure. I think that we would have a better chance to have a red wave if we did move a little bit more and stayed on the principle of limited government, because if you say in one breath limited government and then in the next say is that porn you're watching, and then ban that, I mean that's not, it doesn't stay as principled as I'd like it to be. And I think that if you really go on libertarian values or go on limited government values, let me say that instead of libertarian values, you would have encompassed the majority of America. The majority of Americans do not want the government in their business, want to be left alone, want to have a successful business, want to be, successful, want to have a family, picket fence. That's the majority of Americans. The loud minority are the ones who are saying that, we need to defund the police or open borders or communism or whatever. That's a loud minority. That is not the majority. And I think if we kept on that road, kept pushing that way instead of going, whatever way the GOP is going right now, it's on fire.
It's going down the toilet. That's
exactly. Then, we'd have a better chance at victory. But honestly, and I say this all the time, the GOP is in the toilet. Current Republicans in Congress and the Senate are garbage. And people who continue to vote for these GOP leaders, I have no idea why. I mean, all of them are. I can't think of a GOP leader right now that I like.
Mitch McConnell.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Honestly, me and Mitch go way back. But that's the thing. I mean, you vote for them because you're like, oh, he's done X, Y, and Z for the party. He has done nothing. He has not, at least in the last few years. I mean, as soon as Trump, got out, they were all tongue in cheek talking about him. The second he's gone, saying yeah, he probably shouldn't have been doing that. You were kissing his butt that on January 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th, all the way to the 20th. The GOP is spineless. We need actual Republicans who are going to make a difference, because the Democrats are throwing punches all the times and all we're doing is ducking, and that needs to change.
And I think there needs to be an acceptance within the movement that, for the most part on the social issues, besides abortion, they're losing issues.
But here's the thing, Republican or conservative movement, because those people can vote Republican all they want. That's totally fine. But we're talking conservative. There's a difference between being Republican and conservative. So I
think conservatives need to understand and accept that we've essentially lost the war when it comes to social issues in politics and a lot of aspects, and it's just being realistic. 2/3, I believe I saw a statistic. It's 2/3 of people in America believe that we should legalize marijuana or something like that.
There's certain things that I wouldn't be fine compromising on. There's certain things that I won't compromise on. I mean,
but understand we're living in a culture that is not necessarily the Judeo-Christian country that we want it to be and have those values. And so instead of conservatives, conservatives are kind of like, we need to get back to those. And I completely agree, but it's not going to be through government. It's going to be through a revival within churches and communities actually changing that. But until that changes, we're dealing with the situation we're in right now. And I think a libertarian perspective is going to resonate a lot more with people that essentially says, and Austin Peterson says this, who is a candidate for Missouri, right? Yeah. Well, he's Missouri, but also in 2016 was running for president. And he said, I'm running for president to take over the government, to leave you alone. And that should be the message that conservatives start accepting. And because people, especially after COVID, have seen how bad government is, we should be capitalizing on this moment in history instead of focusing on these silly little issues that we're already have lost, essentially.
I don't want to say that they're all silly. Some are things that sure can't compromise on. It's weed, okay, smoking weed, and have an ounce on you, this or that. It's not really going to change the world. But here's the thing: is I think that these principles, are like, dude, it's all about the principle. These principles won't matter again if we don't have a dang country, and also if we keep saying "don't die on this hill," there's going to be no hills left to die on if we don't pick one.
But the hill is limited government. Die on that hill. I like that hill. It's a big, nice hill.
Take a stance on and say we're going to fight and we're not going to give this up and just let the culture take it.
But let me ask you, what's worth the fight if you're going to lose? You're going to lose the fight every time. If you get a social conservative on the ticket, you'll lose every time. Every single time. Social conservatism will never win in America again. I really believe that.
I do social conservative, but a nuclear family wins every election, has it not?
What do you mean, like
a nuclear family wins every time? A husband, a wife.
Someone with a nuclear family.
Oh, I thought you meant you're saying the candidate with a nuclear family. Trump didn't have a nuclear family.
But socially conservative gender roles, societal norms, those things are still liked in America, regardless. Like,
I'm saying that they're liked, but the candidates are not. The social conservative candidate, because there's
something that I can't imagine the movement doing. It's something that
that's the one thing I'm saying don't concede on, because that is someone's right to life, and you cannot concede on that, because that is our right. That's within the social contract. You cannot concede on that.
Is something is like marriage. Marriage, like the government had no reason touching it in the first place. Marriage is in the Bible. It's never been put into government in the first place, so the government should have never called it marriage. Call it whatever you want. Don't call it marriage.
Yeah, exactly.
People want to get taxed, so but like, here's the thing: is I don't support it, and I'm not calling it marriage. It shouldn't be married. It shouldn't be called that way, but they do.
I'm cool with
that's the issue. They called it that, but it's not, and it's like
government should have never defined marriage. Period.
First, but they got into something they shouldn't have, and that's a hill. Like, am I gonna die on it? I mean, like, it's something I think it's worth saving. The institution of marriage is failing right now tremendously. It's really, really bad. So, I mean, I think there's some things worth sticking up for here.
Government should have never really defined marriage. In any case, that is honestly between you and the Bible, and that's my take on that. But future of the movement, Christian, you kind of hinted on it. There's a difference between being a Republican and being a conservative, or being a libertarian, or what's now being called a liberty Republican, which is what I put Rand Paul in. Rand and Ron, I put them in that category. We've got to start showing people there's a difference between conservatives, libertarians. We've got to figure out who is going to win the battle between being on the right, which values are going to come up, like the social conservative values. I hate to say it, I'm a social conserve, but we may be losing that fight.
Be proud. Be proud.
I'm not saying I hate to say that. Lost. That movement has been lost.
I'm not saying I'm not proud to be a social conservative. I am proud to be a social conservative. But what I hate to admit, but will admit, maybe we are losing that fight politically. We're not losing the fight socially or society in society.
Those people
but we are losing it on the Hill. We're losing it in state legislatures. We're losing it at City Hall. We're losing that fight. So we need to pick and choose our battles, figure out who we are, and figure out what party we want to belong to, because party alignment really happens every 30 and 40 years. I mean, and then parties change. There used to be a Federalist and Anti-Federalist, and now we're Democrats and Republicans. So at some point, we're going to have to figure all of that out. It's going to take time to figure it out. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in 2022. Yeah. What I believe is Republicans will take back the House. I don't think we'll take back the Senate. It's gonna come down to Georgia, and I have no faith in the candidates. I'm sorry, I don't. I don't see it. They can change my mind. They can prove me wrong. I hope they prove me wrong, but I don't see us taking back the Senate right now. We will take back the House, but of course you can't do anything. You have a Democratic Senate and you have a Democratic president. Nothing's going to get done. Everything's for show. It's all for show. So you can go back home and say, I tried to do something. That's how Mitch McConnell gets reelected. That's how John McCain got reelected a bunch of times. They went, did their votes and said, I at least tried, which is a load of malarkey.
That's the
this is what I brought back to the state. I brought back this much money to the state. I brought back this much money, so you keep voting for me. But we need to figure it out. We need to have a powwow. You know what, Chris, I'm with you. Let's have a constitutional convention.
But there's like,
I didn't say that. FBI man, I didn't say that.
I know that's your sentiment. That is your sentiment. I already know it.
No, but like Brandy Love could be a libertarian. Brandy Love could vote Republican, but I'm not going to say Brandy Love's a conservative. And there's a difference. There's a fundamental difference. And I think as long as we acknowledge that, that's fine. Brandy Love wrote Republican all day long. I appreciate the vote. Thank you so much. Okay. That's about the extent of me. My extent of my reaching out. High five. Cool. Thanks for being here. Bye. But like there are fundamental differences here. That's what we got to differentiate between the two. And stop saying not conservative. Like that's not conservative. It's like libertarian, you're Republican, you're voting red. Like there's a total difference here. Hey, there's a difference. There is.
You know what? That's what I keep explaining to my family. They said, oh, I voted for Republicans in the past. I'm like, yeah, you voted for Republicans. You didn't vote for conservatives. I'm a conservative that aligns with the Republican Party because at this point, the Republican Party is the only one that somewhat resembles to a degree my values, what I want to happen in government and in society. So we've got to start messaging better and differentiating everything.
No, it's just there's got to be something we're going to die on here. I think the slippery slope's a real thing, and the longer we concede and just say, hey, it's not going to matter anymore, let's not fight it, like that's when the left takes advantage, and then you see drag queen story hour happening and all these other things like, hey, let's build pornography for children, hear me out, like yesterday, like what was that garbage, like stuff like that just comes out of nowhere, out of left field. People say, how did that happen? Like, I don't know, maybe it's because we decided no hills we're dying on anymore, we just don't want to fight it anymore. And I think that's why it's important to fight for these things, because if not, they're going to take over your kids and education and everything else, and they're going to run the culture, they're going to run everything into a grimy muck, and
that's why you go to city council meetings. If you are part of the tax base, they have to hear you, the school board and the city council.
Yeah, assuming I pay taxes. Come on.
Well, even bringing up transgender story hour or whatnot, it's on the basis of like what are these things are happening in libraries, public libraries.
Yes.
Why the hell are taxpayers paying for libraries? That should be what we're focusing on. Why the heck are they allowed to be in, they're bringing in transgender in public schools. Why are we paying for public schools? That should be what we're focusing on, instead of talking about what should this big government program look like. Let's freaking get rid of it.
I mean, it's like straight up saying like enough is enough here. And also, dude, I'm the biggest school choice proponent in the world you'll ever meet, man. I'm the biggest guy. I know these things are failing and they're terrible. I've lived in the school choice system. It's a beautiful thing. But yeah, no, like it's absolutely crap. The Department of Education gets billions of dollars and sits on it and does nothing and just wastes money. But like it's just crap. I mean, these things are happening under our noses, and we're just like, yeah, well, that's just how it's gonna. Like, no, somebody's got to do something, or else this is not gonna stop. It's gonna get worse. It's not just gonna stay there. It's only gonna get worse. It's cringe. The TikToks, the male feminist video, like all that stuff. You haven't seen it. It's beyond just makes my eyes want to bleed. It's just so bad. These things are like happening. So I'm out. I'm totally out. Like, it's. Put up the dukes, or just take it, like fight or take it. Like I'm at that point with these people, like everybody now. Like we're either gonna fight or we're just gonna take it.
I'll say for my final thought, honestly, I'm not sure where the right is heading as a movement. What future we have in store for us. I'm not as optimistic as I would like to be. Just looking at the GOP, and then God, the Libertarian Party is a mess. It's just awful. It's on fire. Just leave it alone. I have no hope for that. And they probably align more with they should. They don't, but they should. And then you have the GOP, aren't doing anything. They're spineless, and they're going to let Democrats run over them for the next decade. So I don't want to sound like Joe Biden and saying that we're heading for a dark winter or anything like that. But it's just unfortunate that this is the point that we are when we had as much power as we did on the right, Republicans, whatever you want to say. Where I really have optimism is the youth, where, we all do the work that we do, and all the conservatives that I talk to who are afraid to be on college campuses or afraid to speak their mind, even in their own homes, they're afraid to say what they actually believe. These are the ones who are emboldened now. We're giving them that power, we're giving them that voice, and we're giving them that community to where hopefully they will run at one day, or maybe they'll be. And I know I plan to one day run, and I hope others do. I always say that on the podcast. Run. We need young people to run now. Get these slimy, insert word there, out of DC because they're not getting anything done. Get them out. We need young people to run now. And that's why I really want to see more young people on the right, not necessarily conservatives, but young people on the right running, maybe a little bit all over the spectrum running. Well, let me not say all over. Somebody's going to clip that and say, look what he said. But we need people on the right running, and we need young people. I really encourage people to get out there and run. There are so many people who have been in state legislatures, at least in states without term limits. Mine has heavy term limits, but states that don't, you have old people who have been in the state legislature for 20 years and they have not had an opponent in a decade. Primary them, get them out. This is our shot. Get in there. I think we really could make a difference. I really encourage people to run for office and put an end to this. Put an end to the garbage. Let's fight back against the left because they're throwing all these punches and we're taking them. That's all we're doing.
Yeah, and if I'll just give my final thoughts. I think that the conservative movement can learn from libertarian values, and specifically, and I think we've seen examples of it in what we're seeing in this country when it comes to this awakening with gun rights. In regards to, there's multiple states that have been passing constitutional carry and recognizing people's private property rights and Second Amendment rights, and where there's no regulations on where you can carry your firearm, essentially. And I think that's been something that we've been working towards for a long time. I think the conservative movement needs to think more long-term and less short-term. I also think that conservatives need to take what Ronald Reagan said is in that libertarian.
Don't say that to Christian.
Libertarianism is the heart and soul of conservatism, and conservatives need to get back to the roots of libertarian values of limited government, constitutional rights that actually mean limited government, not big government. And we'll vote differently. Anyways,
did Ronald Reagan really say that?
Yeah.
I wish he supported the Second Amendment. All right.
I know. I have plenty issues with Reagan. Plenty issues with Reagan on that part. But yeah, I think there's reason to be optimistic about the future. But yeah, we need to stick to our principles and think long game and not think about how we get institutional power, how we can influence culture outside of government. And I think that's going to be what the conservative libertarian movement should be looking towards in the future.
What I'm gonna say for my final thoughts is, it doesn't kind of go along the lines of everybody else, but I'm gonna say this: it's okay to be mixed on a few things. I'm pretty sure everyone's hinted at it. Even though I am a full social conservative, I also will concede the libertarian side of it. I don't know what to really call myself. I just know I'm on the right because some days I feel like I'm a full social conservative. Some days I can roll with the libertarians.
Join us.
But here's the thing. You know why I can't be a libertarian? I'm a neocon. I love Reagan's foreign policy and Bush's foreign policy. It ended the Cold War.
You denied it.
How do you feel about
It ended the Cold War. It ended a 40, 50-year-long war, which we shouldn't have been fighting with the Russians anyway. We should have left them to their own devices as long as they didn't come over here. But they ended it, and we had somewhat we had some stability for a while. It's where we got into the Middle East that was the problem. Baby Bush did that one to us, but it's okay to have mixed feelings on some things. Just know that who you are, what your values are, know what you stand for, and always stand on it. If you do not have strong principles, I have strong principles, even though I'm mixed with everything. I strongly believe that sometimes the military needs to be involved in some things, not the Middle East, because that was a total failure. But, and people should say, yeah, we were wrong to go over there. But I'm also within the lines of libertarianism saying, yeah, we were wrong to go over there. And that's okay. But I know my principles. I know what I stand for. And at the end of the day, you are not going to win any argument at all unless you know your principles, know your argument, know what you stand for, and learn the other person's argument. Every time someone debates someone, you will lose every single time if you do not know the other person's argument and how to combat it. So know your argument, know the other person's argument too.
If we can't win a war within 5 years, we shouldn't be there. I'm just kidding. That is what I do believe. Like, there ain't no point. If we ain't gonna win it,
you know what? Should we have fought in World War II then, Christian?
You can't win a war within 5 years. Wait, when did we actually get involved? When did we actually officially get involved, and when did it end? Because I think it was within 5 years, to my knowledge.
You're talking about World War II?
Yeah, it was within
December 7th, 1941.
Wrong war.
Ended April.
How about Vietnam?
In Europe, it ended April 20th. No, not April 20th. Like May 7th,
that was the wrong
1945.
War. I picked the wrong war. What about Vietnam? Should we have been in that, or the Korean War?
The whole idea
That's such a great question, Omar. We're going to say that for the next episode. Again,
you know what?
This is the longest one we've ever had. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Black Friday. Austin, thank you so much for being on. We appreciate you, man. We'll have to do this again some other time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you, everybody. If you want to, please like, share, subscribe, share it with your friends. If you want to support and learn how to donate, message any one of us. We'll show you how to donate.